Hey everyone, it's Short Fiction Friday. This week I read 4 different stories. The Transformation by Mary Shelley, 'Tis the Season to be Jelly by Richard Matheson, The Other Side by Ramsey Campbell, and The Maiden by Richard Laymon. Let's start with The Transformation by Mary Shelley. This was first published in late 1830 in The Keepsake, 1831. The Keepsake was a yearly short story anthology marketed towards young women, I think. The Transformation is more of an adventure romance kind of story with a couple of fantastical horror kind of elements as well. We have a first-person point of view character. He is minor nobility. He's kind of a stubborn, wild kind of character. You know, he always just wants to go out drinking and causing trouble with his friends. He is in love with another minor noble called Juliet. They both wish to be married, but Juliet's father has this kind of conditions that the main character has to fulfill. He's got to calm down a bit. You know, he has to act like nobility. And our main character just finds this arrangement to be unacceptable. He wants to keep his freedom, and if possible, he would like to just elope with Juliet. Juliet doesn't want to run away with this guy. She is in love, but she doesn't want to abandon her father. She doesn't want to abandon her position. So now our main character is down on his luck. He's still wandering around from town to town, causing trouble. And eventually in his wanderings, he comes across a dwarf, a sorcerer, who has access to a lot of treasure. This dwarven sorcerer, he wants to cut a deal with our main character. He says, if you let me swap bodies with you for 3 days, then I'll give you all this money. Of course, our main character, this is a good deal to him. He thinks, well, it's only 3 days, and after the 3 days, I'll have all this treasure. And using the treasure, I'll be able to get Juliet back. But of course, this dwarf sorcerer guy, you know, black magic, can we trust this guy? Yeah, this is a pretty enjoyable short story, written in quite a complicated style, you know, very long sentences. Probably not the best fit in the body horror book, but I enjoyed it. All right, the next thing I read was 'Tis the Season to be Jelly by Richard Matheson. This was first published in the Magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction in June 1963. This was a very short, humorous story about a family sometime after a nuclear bomb has been dropped. The family is all kind of mutated. Their bodies are falling apart. They have very soft bones. And the family's kind of discussing if it's worth it for the son to get married, given that their bodies seem to be increasingly breaking apart. This was a very silly, goofy story. Since it's Richard Matheson, I kind of expected something like, like a Twilight Zone episode. But this was much stranger and sillier. It's all written as if it's, like a southern accent. Lots of ma's and pa's. This was fine, but in terms of Richard Matheson, I'm looking forward to reading something a bit more serious. The third story I read was The Other Side by Ramsey Campbell. This was first published in a magazine for the 12th World Fantasy Convention in 1986. This story was excellent, the best Ramsey Campbell story that I've read so far. Here our main character is Mr. Bowring. He's a strict, grumpy, unlikable teacher. He's always creating conflict with his students. And at the start of this story, he's looking out his window from his apartment across the river. He sees that there's been some arson, like a building's burnt down, and he immediately starts suspecting his students of doing it. Strangely, while he's looking at this burnt building, he sees a clown emerge. The clown starts dancing and acting maniacal. And over the rest of the story, the actions of the clown escalate. You know, it gets more and more violent. And without spoiling it, there does seem to be some link between the clown and Mr. Bowring. Yeah, this was really good. It had a very abstract, dreamlike quality. And this is the first Ramsey Campbell story that I've read that really nailed that quality. Yeah, I really enjoyed this one. Okay, and the final short story that I read this week was The Maiden by Richard Laymon. Here, our main character is Elmo. He's going to swim across a lake, heading towards an island. And the reason that he's doing this is because he thinks possibly his crush is going to be there waiting for him. Elmo thinks this because Rudy and Cody, two of his fellow students, have told him that a girl is going to be out there waiting for him on the island. Now, of course, this could just be a prank by Rudy and Cody. While all three of our main characters are heading out to this lake together, Rudy and Cody tell Elmo about an urban legend regarding this lake. There's supposedly the Maiden, who is this vengeful ghost who swims in the water and drowns people. Now, this is Richard Laymon, so it's a very fast-paced story, lots of dialogue, lots of sex-obsessed teenage characters, and the pranks, the forest, lakeside setting. It all very much feels like an 80s slasher. And of all the things that I've read by Richard Laymon so far, I have read a couple of his novels, and I would say that I preferred this short story to the novels. I'm not entirely sure if Richard Laymon's style for me can really sustain my concentration, if he can sustain my interest for an entire novel-length story. Whereas this fast-paced, sleazy style, I think it worked much better as a short story. So yeah, I quite like this. All right, and ranking these short stories, potentially putting them onto my top 20 here. So I'll put up on the screen the best short stories that I've read in season 1. Ramsey Campbell, The Other Side, was definitely the best thing that I read this week. But it's not quite going to make the top 20. I'm sure it'd be top 25. It's really close. But it's just slightly missed the cutoff. All the other short stories I read this week were also good. They're all enjoyable, but they're definitely not making the top 20. All right, and selecting short stories for next week. Actually, I don't have to roll the dice this week because I only have 3 short stories left. So I'll be reading Survivor Type by Stephen King, The Psycho by Michael O'Donoghue, and Bright Blades Gleaming by Basil Copper. And I think that's about 60 pages altogether. Go read these short stories. I'll put them up on the screen here. Then I'll probably do a wrap-up episode, and after that I'll select 6 new anthologies to read. All right, thanks for watching. See you all next week. Bye.